All right, we are back. Charles, we're just going to hit some questions that we should be looking at here throughout the course of training camp. A few things I want the people to be paying attention to. One, my eye is on the Rams right now because, dude, I am so excited about this Rams offense. And again, as we're going to be doing top 10 offenses, the show next week, obviously they're a team I am definitely considering, but Jordan Rodriguez reported from training camp that per Sean McVay, quarterback Matthew Stafford's dealing with some back soreness heading into camp. Rams will modify his workouts and he will start training camp working to the side with trainers. That's a 5-day period per McVay. If Stafford's an older guy, he's got a bad back. Ain't nobody used to have a bad back. You got a bad back. You got a bad back. As our mutual friend Eric Stoner once said back in the day, a tenet to live by in this sport and frankly in real life.
Yeah.
Secondly, the reason that this is on my radar is that Stafford at this point, and this was one of the reasons I didn't have him, and I kind of regret not having him as a top 10 quarterback, but one of the reasons I didn't have him as a top 10 quarterback was that the splits when he is under pressure, when he's not under pressure, are dramatic at this point. He's already dealing with something in the back, and Alaric Jackson is dealing with blood clots after they gave him a big contract extension. They signed Coleman Shelton to start at center. I maybe start at center, but he was a terrible center with the Bears last year. That's on my radar. Again, I just think paying attention to some of these, like the Rams offensive line, is something that I think is paramount because that could be where it all crumbles, what looks like a very, very exciting offense right now.
Yeah. The Matthew Stafford thing, I don't look, my back hurts every day. Sometimes that's just what happens. Like, I think he'll be okay. And it doesn't seem like it's anything that's going to stop him from playing games. It's just kind of what happens when you get old. Your back hurts. You've been playing a lot of football. But the offensive line, I think it's fair to be a little concerned about that because remember, they made a big swing on Jonah Jackson last year, and obviously it didn't work out. He's now with the Chicago Bears for a 6th-round pick. So that's some turnover. I'm still hopeful that guys like Avila can still kind of live up to potential and be, one of those real, like, true building blocks for the future that allows them to stay running the ball like how they want to and how Sean McVay likes to play. But it is a little confusing because I think this is like the one area that could actually tank the offense if it's not good enough, because your quarterback isn't as mobile as he used to be. And I think you're kind of still, it's not necessarily a bad thing, I think, because you're kind of playing counterculture, but their offense is kind of reliant on Stafford having the time and being able to just fire down the field. And if that offensive line isn't up to par, that could be like a true disaster zone for them, because I don't see Matthew Stafford at this point, who was drafted, this is his 17th NFL season, really moving around like that.
I was in high school when he was drafted.
Yeah, same. I was a 9th grader. Yeah, when he got drafted.
Crazy. I saw some old Lions highlight where he was scrambling down the field, and I was like, that ain't happening anymore. Okay,
it's a new era.
That's sort of why I mentioned the back thing. Is just if you're he's always kind of dealing with something. I'm not making a freak out about the back thing, but he's got the sore back. He gets hit from the blind side because DJ Humphries is, starting because Alaric Jackson's not out there. And then all of a sudden, oh man, we're talking about Stafford taking a big hit. And then, by the way, and look, knock on wood, I don't want any of this to happen. I want with everything in my being for this, for Matthew Stafford to be out there kicking ass with this wide receiver duo. But we're one big hit away from Devontae Adams catching passes from Jimmy Garoppolo again. I remember how that went last time. I mean, Devontae did not have a good time.
It'd be a really handsome duo, though, wouldn't it?
It didn't really work out again for the Raiders the last time these guys were teamed up. Handsome or not.
Did not.
Just throwing that out there. So that is, again, one offensive line to monitor. I want to go to another offensive line for a team that, just like the Rams, probably fancies itself as a contender. The Texans offensive line. The Texans are selling us this offseason, Charles, that more is better or different is better because they got a lot of guys that they can throw at this offensive line. I think some of the positions are set in stone, but there are also probably a couple just open spots. And quite frankly, I want to see who fills them, who is the starting 5 for the Texans? And is there a group of the options here that would make you feel better than the others? Because they did obviously bring in a lot of guys from the Seahawks offensive line and the Vikings offensive line. 2 teams by the end of the year were yep, they need a lot of upgrades on that position. The Texans have brought them in as potential solutions here.
Yes, this offseason, the Texans, we talk about Larry Tunsil, who they flipped to the Commanders. They added Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, Jake Andrews, Ed Ingram, and then drafted Ariante Ursary on day 2 of the draft. I would say you need Ursary to be one of your 5 starters, like for sure. Among like what they have, it's not the strongest group, and I like you said, they went with this idea that more is better or different is better. I just don't. I don't really know what they're looking at, like to make them come to these conclusions that this is going to be like some revamped offensive line. Unless they got like the greatest offensive line coach in the world, and obviously that would make a difference as far as just how cohesive and organized they are up front. I just don't really see how this isn't a bottom offensive line, unless guys take like some really, really big steps. Like if Titus Howard plays a lot better than he has, Blake Fisher takes a step, Ariante Ursary starts, like that's kind of the optimistic view. But as it sits now, where you still have rookies who should be afforded the time to be second round rookies, like Ursary, I just don't really know how they take an improvement over where they were last year, unless like the improvement in offensive line coaching is really just that substantial.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is that the protection plans last year, and you and Nate talked about this a lot leading up to the playoffs, and then like right at the end of when their season came to a close, there didn't CJ Stroud get sacked like 8 times and against the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoff loss, I believe, something like that. So it was a good moment to talk about like their protection plans last year were just a mess. They were one of the teams that just like walked into the season just DOA because of that, and eventually it just bore into other areas of the offense where I think Stroud started to develop some bad habits. Like I think Stroud's a great quarterback, but there were some sprays by the end of the season, even when there wasn't like pressure, because I think he's constantly thinking like, all right, I'm getting the snap. There's no way they're going to be able to pick up a stunt. I got to immediately go into chaos mode. And again, just like that's not his fault. Like that is a reason for why that happened, is the offensive line and the protection plans. They're hoping that this changes with some of these guys, like, hey, that maybe just, I don't know, take to the program better, this, that, and the other. But obviously you don't walk in here with more talent than you did last year. I do think that sometimes I can buy into the different is better, but obviously again, I'm just paying attention to like who are the guys, because Ursary coming in here, who was your first pick this year after trading out of the first round, like him coming in here and immediately being like a day 1 starter would be a huge coup for this team, because Cam Robinson is a name, but I think he used to be like an average starting tackle and is now like has certifiably been below average, certainly with the Vikings last year.
Yeah, he peaked as like maybe like a top 20 starting left tackle. I don't think he's that guy anymore though. Yeah.
Yeah, you can sell yourself on some improvement from a guy like Blake Fisher. Titus Howard's a solid starter. You really need like center to come together, and I mean, I don't know, the fact that like Laken Tomlinson and Ed Ingram are like contenders to start that's troubling. Like you don't want that. So again, I'm just curious what the final 5 combination looks like. I feel like every show I do at this point, I always end up bearing the lead when I'm like training camp questions or whatever. I never feel like I just start off with the fact that like, hey, the Vikings are breaking in a new starting quarterback, and they're a team that almost was the number 1 seed in their conference last year and probably let that slip maybe because of quarterback play. And regardless of what you think about Sam Darnold, like he was one of the most productive quarterbacks in the NFL this year. So I feel like big training camp question is just, how does JJ McCarthy look in camp, and how much obviously does that matter? Does the offense look different with him under center? A lot of things to discuss and consider in Minnesota right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone could say how they know he'll look. I mean, he hasn't played a real football game since Michigan won the national championship game against Washington. That was a long time ago at this point. So I don't know how he'll look, but I know he better look good, because this is a team that can win the Super Bowl if things break right for them. And they went out and they got offensive line upgrades, like big time offensive line upgrades. They basically they did redo the entire interior of their offensive line, where you got Donovan Jackson in the draft, you got Will Fries and Ryan Kelly in free agency. Obviously, that was a huge need that they felt like they had to address, and they attacked it. So you got an offensive line, got Justin Jefferson, got Jordan Addison, who's like one of the perfect like wide receiver 2s in the league to me. go get it. Kevin O'Connell, you got
Yeah.
good coaching. You're going to have the good defense. I mean, this is set up for him to have like a breakout first season. But at the same time, like you still want to give him like the space to struggle because he hasn't played in so long, and it's going to be a big time adjustment. It's going to be a lot faster than the last time he played. He's going to need the reps, but this is such a good situation for a young quarterback to walk into. Like when you look at the Caleb Williams didn't want to be drafted by the Bears storyline earlier this summer, and he wanted to go to the Vikings. It's easy to see why. You got a good offensive line, good offensive coach, maybe the best receiver in football, depending on what your flavor is that day. So go get it done. I just hope that it's not so bad that one of the best teams in the league gets neutered. But man, I just believe in KOC so much. I've seen Sam Darnold play without those guys before. It didn't look pretty. So I guess if you're the hopeful here and you're still kind of like agnostic about JJ McCarthy, the floor here is really, really high with the talent they've assembled on the field and in the coaching staff.